unions. Why? Because some of the things that Garth Mullins just talked about, the fact that unions are the most cohesive vehicle for worker rights and for the rights of the unemployed and other people who need some social justice in this world. We don't just look out for ourselves and the people who are covered by our collective agreements. We work very hard on things like immigrant rights and challenging temporary foreign workers so that we can have actually a real proper immigration program in this country and not slavery and exploitation of workers from other countries where we just use them and send them home again. We work on Employment Standards Acts and try to make sure that farm workers are traveling in safe vehicles and not being exposed to terrible pesticides and abuses at the workplaces. So we are, as a trade union movement, always trying to make sure that we're not going to that spiral, the race to the bottom, but the movement bringing everybody up. And that's not just because we're good people, it's because we recognize that we're vulnerable too. If everything manages to be spiraled down and if Harper is successful at destroying unions in this country, everybody will suffer. But if we are able to help lift everybody up to where our conditions are, then everybody also benefits, and so do we. Harper has been very clear about breaking into free collective bargaining. In his first 5 months as having a majority government, he invoked legislation 5 times that ordered workers back to work. And what happens there is you have a dispute. Bargaining is presumed to have some balance in it. It completely destroys the balance and gives all the power in the negotiating to the employer. They don't have to bargain with the union anymore because they can just turn to the government and say, we'll just sit back and wait for you to order these folks back to work, and then we'll be able to impose something through an arbitrator or another process. So it really distorts the power. It's an interference with free collective bargaining, the kind of bargaining that we've had since the 40s in terms of some kind of balance, in theory at least. And it's really leading to a place that's really very, very difficult for workers to be able to get justice and to support their bargaining demands. And so while only about 25% of workers in Canada are covered by federal legislation and the federal labor code, provinces are following suit. So we looked at the situation last year where the BC Teachers Federation was contemplating going on a strike after back to work legislation had been passed. And what did the government do? They showed that the next thing that was going to happen was that they were going to go to court with legislation that would fine that union and its workers, its leadership, and the individual members $22 million every day. How long can you sustain against that? So we need to find new ways of organizing together. One of those is through events like this, because when we are together, we are strong. And it's really critical that the labor movement not be this is our responsibility, not to be off on our own, but to be fighting back and supporting and collaborating with all the kind of people like are here today, with First Nations, with new immigrants, temporary foreign workers, people who are looking out for the environment, and the whole range of social justice activists. None of us can do it alone, but together we are strong. Thank you for being here today.
It is hot. Stay hydrated. If anybody doesn't have water, needs water, we have some bottles of water up here. Hydrate or die. That's the rule on this planet. Next up, we have Jane Bowie. Jane is a former member of the Vancouver School Board. She was elected with COPE, the Coalition of Progressive Electors, and she is currently the host and producer of W2 Media Mornings on Vancouver Co-op Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jane Bowie.
Thanks. It's really great to be here. Just want to echo the acknowledgement that we're on unceded territory of the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, and always want to acknowledge that. It's a lot, especially when we're dealing with Canada Day. It's an important thing to remember is whose Canada this is. So I've been active for a long time, fighting for social justice in a whole number of ways. And when I was asked to speak here today, I was told I could speak about anything about Harper I wanted to stop. Well, to try and narrow that down, oh my God, it was impossible. So you can look at it. I mean, the reasons are almost endless why we have to stop Harper. Harper's been extraordinarily anti-democratic. There's the proroguing of Parliament, which is he suspended Parliament because he wasn't going to be able to get his own way. Like, it's unbelievable. There's voter suppression. The omnibus bills that he's been putting through that are attack the environment, indigenous rights, include things like the crime and punishment bills. It's extraordinary. There's the scandals. Now, the scandals in themselves are one thing, but I don't think he even cares. The reality is this is an anti-government government. The more they can disillusion people in government, the better. They don't want us voting. They don't want us believing that government can actually work for people if it's an actually democratic government with a party in power that cares and is democratic and listens to the people. They undermine public confidence and decrease voter turnout. They're pro-war, pro-military. The military spending in Canada is way higher than ever before. It's an incredible waste of money. If you look at what could be spent in this country if we weren't spending money on war, if we were spending money on housing, on education, on the environment, the list is endless, on health. Instead, we're spending money on war, on machines that kill people, and surveillance of people that are organizing. That's what money is being spent on. There's tax cuts to the wealthiest people in our country. There's a tax on people, anybody that's trying to organize, indigenous people, immigrants, queer people, women, labor, environmentalists, scientists. There's constant attempts to divide us, to silence anyone who's critical of this government. So why stop Harper? He's reactionary. He's one of the most pro-corporate interest prime ministers this country has ever seen. And in the most reactionary elements of our corporate sector, the mining industry, the oil and gas industry, the banking industry, those are the forces that are behind Harper. Those are the forces that are trying to push through pipelines, ignoring the rights of Indigenous people. It's all one thing. And this is all happening amidst a whole global situation where we've had 6 years of a global economic crisis. There's governments attacking people's rights right across the country, but people are standing up. Look at what's happening today in Brazil, in Egypt, in Greece, right across the world. People are fighting back. So, we can't just sit and wait till the next election. I think that's one thing, if anybody didn't learn anything from the BC election, it was that we can't just sit on our hands and wait to elect another government. We have to be organizing now. We need to be uniting on issues that we have in common, things that we can agree on. There's differences, we have differences, we can celebrate those differences and work around them, but there are things we can all agree on. We can all agree on the need for truly affordable housing, not the vision version of affordable housing, but real affordable housing. We can unite around Indigenous rights. We can unite around the environment. We can unite around tax reform. We can unite around electoral change. We can unite around the environment. The list goes on. And this is an urgent thing. We need to be doing it now, and I think we can. The reality is that when we are united, we are so strong. And the other speakers that talked about in terms of history, you can look at our history of this country, what happens when people unite. You can look at what's happening around the world when people unite. Governments topple. You can truly make a change if we work together. So the question is, can we stop Harper?
Yes!
Can we stop Harper?
Yeah!
Will we stop Harper?
We must!
Thanks.
Liberal Commission and is an executive member to the Liberal Party of Canada BC Policy Committee. So please welcome Sophia Lynn.
Talk here right now. People ask me, what can a 16-year-old do? And my answer is everything. We can stop Harper, we can stop this government, and we can change Canada. I would like to give big thanks to Rachel Matthew for organizing this phenomenal event, and thank you to the people of the Coast Salish Nation for this land that we stand on. The before I begin, I would like to give my words of encouragement to the First Nations people and participants of I Don't Know More. They have been extremely courageous to fight against Harper government's destructive environmental policies and the FIPPA trade agreement.
So where's
Thank
the
you.
radical press? Nobody's here.
Ladies and gentlemen, if
all
you're sitting
bowed
here
out.
today, it means
I
you
know.
want answers.
No
Some
one's
of you
here.
might want answers to how can we stop the Northern Gateway pipeline being built here at BC. Others might want to hear about how can we stop the current long-term interest. My answer is quite simple. We can't. Under the current voting system, we will continue to elect an abusive majority government with less than 38% of the vote. The government will still claim that it represents the majority of the Canadians' interest, while in reality, more than 7 million votes has been discounted during the last federal election. How can this happen? Well, thanks to a voting system called first past the post, where one voter may only get one vote for one candidate, bad majority government and wasted votes became a lot more common. The other huge problem with our voting system is that it produces a set number of member parliaments that collectively are far more homogeneous than the entire Canadian society as a whole. Our parliament is more notably known as male, pale, and stale in our society. Well, the lack of diversity, whether of age, ethnic interest, gender, or social cultural affiliations, makes our government myopic and unable to think in our best interest. But there is a way to get out of this terrible politics. There is a way to get Mr. Harper out. The solution is called proportional representation. Proportional representation refers to any voting system that produces a parliament where MPs are elected in close proportion to the votes they receive. In PR systems, regions are represented by teams of MPs with different political views in close proportion to the views held in population. And in fact, each candidate who received more than 50,000 votes could get elected. PR would have a huge impact on all of the problems I've discussed above. It will make a parliament more closely associated with the voters. It will eliminate regional hypo-concentrations. It will largely do away with swing and safe ridings. By ensuring voters everywhere can get influence who gets elected, we will get a voice in parliament. We will get represented. Furthermore, the most important aspect of PR is that it would dramatically improve Indigenous representation, uttered by simply making it possible for First Nations people in various parts of the country to band together and to concentrate their votes on representatives they want to elect, rather than diffusing them ineffectively across the country. Or we can follow the New Zealand model and create Aboriginal voting districts in parallel to general electoral districts. Inside all of us, there is a Canadian dream. A dream for Canada to be more democratic, the House of Commons more responsive to our needs, and the government more accountable. And so here I urge you, for all of Canada and for your Canadian dream, endorse proportional representation. Thank you.
I was wondering if maybe you'd like to hear a poem. Yeah. All right, well then, next I'd like to bring up R.C. Waslowski. R.C. is the mentor and organizer of the Youth Poetry Slam here in Vancouver. He's also the organizer of the Hullabaloo Youth Poetry Festival every year. And he is one of the co-hosts of Wax Poetic on Co-op Radio. Now, we do have a parental advisory warning. This next poem deals with mature subject matter and may not be suitable for all audiences.
Thank you, organizers, and to everybody else who's been speaking their truth today. It's an honor to be a part of it. And yeah, this poem is a little raunchy at times, because I think it's important to make fun of the crime minister of our country. And that, so this is what this poem does. It makes fun of him. It's got lots of research, personal research into his personal behaviors. And also, I wanted to just say shout out to all the undercover police officers who are here with us today as well. Hopefully you're having as much fun as you would be up at the cannabis rally. So and thank you for being here and listening to this piece. It's raunchy, but there's only one swear word in it, and instead of using that word, I'm going to use the word cronk. K-R-O-N-K, Kronk. And Matthew is also going to kind of bleep as well when that swear word comes up. So the rest of the time, anyhow, it's rather ridiculous and silly. Hopefully you enjoy it. And at the very worst, it's only 3 minutes long. And so then you'll have something else to do in 3 minutes. Or hear somebody else. So this is called Why Stephen Harper Hates Funding for the Arts, aka flatulence. Act sensible. Act sensible. Act accessible. Act accessible. Grrr. Grrr. Every time you masturbate, Stephen Harper murders a kitten. Free-range dating, free-range chicken, free-range dating, free-range chicken. Whoop, 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 whoop. Art is the art is excuse me. Art is the axe for the frozen sea inside us. Kafka. I told a joke, I made a pun. I told a joke, I made a pun. I told a joke, I made a pun. D-range dating, free-range chicken. D-range dating, free-range chicken. Fun fact number 1. Boing! God loves heroin. God hates science. God made a heroin. Man made science. That's an insight. That's an insight. That's why we're at war in Afghanistan. Fun fact number 2. Boing! Every time Stephen Harper masturbates, the Taliban shoot a kitten full of heroin. That's an insight. That's an insight. That's why we're at war in Afghanistan. D-range dating, free-range chicken. D-range dating, free-range chicken. I love sucking on Stephen Harper's cronk. It tastes like America. Free-range dating, free-range chicken. Is that a pipeline in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? Free-range dating, free-range chicken. Running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Ecstatic, phlegmatic, pneumatic, dramatic. I received a grant for this.
Stephen finally got my signed copy of his book.
Is that my signed copy of your book? Yeah. Wow, no, that was hard. This is gonna be hard to follow, but I will try to do what I can do. Good afternoon, everybody. I get to repeat myself a little bit. I'd also like to thank the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, and Squamish peoples for hosting us on their traditional lands today. I'm not one much to celebrate Canada Day. For one thing, I find the nation just a problematic idea or category. At the best of times, I think it's especially problematic when you're looking at a country that has a colonial past and a colonial present like this one does. So I would rather just celebrate being here with all of you, the people that I live on this land with currently. And it's a pleasure to be here in the sun with you. It seems these past few months like we've been on something of a watershed, I guess. We've seen the Emperor's new clothes, and it's not a pretty sight. It seems we can now either sink beneath the rising apathy, inundation of scandal, arrogance, and a government that clearly only listens to the wealthy, or we can at last begin to redefine politics and the political in earnest. The gloves are off. The Harper government and its policies are the leading edge of the new normal. We can expect democratic freedoms to continue to be in retreat. We can expect more austerity, more cuts. We can expect more privilege for the elite and a continuing open season on this country's natural resources and its indigenous peoples and traditions. But looking around the world at the millions amassed in cities and city squares and streets, we can also find new courage. We are many and they are few. We can start to build a new relationship to each other and to the natural world. We can build sustainable economies. We can build truly democratic, grassroots social structures. But we're going to have to do it ourselves, outside of the old, now bankrupt political system. So I'm going to read some, I guess it could be called a poem. Maybe after RC I would not. Are we gone? Okay. Called 13 Ways to Stop Harper. 1. Don't vote for him. Stop. I'll wait a minute, maybe.
We'll let the sirens pass.
At least it's not the cop. Friends don't let their friends live. 2, when the robots call you, know that this is the synthetic voice of creeping totalitarianism. Just string. Okay. When the robots call you, know that this is the synthetic voice of creeping totalitarianism. Just give the tin can a yank and snap the string. 3. Carry your Stop Harper sign with you everywhere. Stand with it in bars and cafes. Stand with it in the streets, parks, and city squares. Stand with it where you work, and stand with it where you go to school, and stand with it in the places of government. It's your passport to a new asshole-free future. 4. You weren't. Oh well. 4. Remember Tahrir Square. Remember Taksim Square. The only real response to corruption and the abuse of power is mass, sustained, and fierce resistance. 5. Keep being idle no more. The path to decolonization is also the path to stopping Stephen Harper and his environmentally rapacious agenda. 6. It's the tar sands, not the oil sands, and there's nothing ethical about it. Never stop reminding people of that. 7. Protect fish and rivers, lakes and estuaries. Harper has the wrong liquid in his sights, and we know that life flows clear and clean, fresh and cold. 8. Actually listen to the scientists when they tell you our energy policies are killing the planet. 9. If it comes to this, and it might, plug the pipelines with your bodies. Stand strong in the path of bulldozers, and let your life be a counter-friction to stop the machine. 10. When they say you cannot wear a mask, wear a goddamn mask. Democracy dies under the glare of forced surveillance. Let no scandal, 11. Let no scandal, let no single oil spill, no abuse of democratic process, no injustice, and no arrogant and self-serving payoff go unchallenged, unrecorded, or unremembered. Let this government's every notorious act follow it to its swiftly approaching grave, and let's dance on that grave together. 12. If Harper is a salesman, don't buy what he's selling. It's snake oil. If he's an architect, get out of his building. It's going to fall down anyway. If he's a doctor, you don't actually need what he's prescribing. Get a second opinion. If he's the captain of the ship, abandon ship. You're headed for a reef. If he's a weatherman, and he'd be a pretty shitty weatherman, climate denier and such, but if he's a weatherman, you don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. 13. And finally, don't even think of voting for him. But don't wait until election day. Resistance is a matter of daily life, and change is something that comes with every step, every breath, and every word. Find each other. Organize. We are the real government, and we can govern ourselves just fine. Thank you very much.
Her songs, she's had 2 CDs out. She's earned airplay on CBC, National Public Radio, and ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. She emerged in Vancouver as an activist with Occupy Vancouver and has attended and helped organize various Idle No More gatherings. Mostly she is known as a healer or a helper and has been an integral part of organizing talking circle workshops with Chief Phil Lane Jr.
Really great. I really enjoyed listening to that.
And just give us a minute while we get her audio all set up.
I'm actually seeing